first week we're going to take a look at Jesus' humility. Now you may say to me, hold on a second. I know enough about Jesus to know this. He claimed to be God, and that's not very humble. And you're right. If somebody walked up to me off the street and said, you know what? Hi, my name is God. Humility would not be the first characteristic that came to mind. On top of that, you may say, you know what? God demands all worship. He demands all glory. And again, that is not a very humble person to demand all worship. And if we're looking at this through the lens of a human, you're right. People who demand glory and demand worship, they're not very humble people. While there are plenty of reasons why God can demand worship and can demand glory, I think it's important that we look at his humility first. We like from our leaders humility. In fact, when people walk outside of the characteristic of being humble, we have big issues with that. There's something deep within us that just doesn't like people who aren't humble. And Paul, a guy who at one point in time, he did not like Christians, he did not like Jesus, he said this about Jesus later, who, though he, Jesus, was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. Now here, when he says a form of God or in the form of God, does not mean he was like God or that he was partially God. He was the very form of God. Looking at Jesus and hearing Jesus was the same as looking and hearing God. Jesus didn't count equality with God a thing to be grasped. Now, he didn't show up demanding to be called God. He went through proofs. He showed people that he was God, but he did not demand people to see him as God. He let people walk away from him who refused to believe that he was God. But Jesus made himself nothing. He made himself no big deal. In this day of Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and blogs and resumes, we're all trying to self-market. And in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with self-marketing. In fact, if there was, I'd be a hypocrite because I'm going to be utilizing Twitter and Facebook and all these things to be pushing this out. But Jesus made himself nothing. He made himself no big deal. When he did miracles, when he did big things, he would go up to people and say, "Shh, don't tell anybody." He was a horrible self-marketer. I've never read that in any marketing, in any business book. You know what? Tell people, don't share what you do. Viral marketing is the biggest thing out there. That's what everybody wants to get a hold of. And Jesus was doing exactly the opposite. I challenge you this week. Read Philippians. It's 4 chapters. You can read it once a day, every day this week. Take a look at what Paul was getting at. Take a look at why he was telling his readers that Jesus was humble. Understand why he was writing this and how this has implications on our life. And as you read this, ask yourself this. Was Jesus really humble? And what does this have to do with my life?